Down! Ukhon. We gotta isolate him.
No, we don't.
Wait! Useless human filth. Summon the beast! Crush them!
Yo, how's it going guys? It's Abs here and welcome back to another Gears of War lore video. So in this video I'm going to be explaining the lore behind the Locust Geneticist Ukhon, everything we know about him, his background, his history and much more. So as always, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss another lore video, and yeah, let's dive straight into it. So Ukhon was actually once a human, believe it or not, and he was born and raised in Tyrus to an Imulsion miner during the Pendulum Wars. And at a certain point, Ukhon developed a condition which was known as Rustlung due to overexposure to Imulsion fumes. His father, among others in their community, also became infected with the fatal condition. So of course, due to the newfound health effects of Imulsion exposure discovered by the Coalition of Ordered Governments, the Department of Health established the New Hope Research Facility to house the children of Imulsion miners infected with Rustlung. So this was set up to study the toxicity of Imulsion and to create a cure. Among the children taken and imprisoned for experiments was Ukhon, and he was also known as Patient Zero. Now the fact that Ukhon was called Patient Zero of Rustlung suggests that he was likely the first human infected with the disease, or at least the first known human. But that's just a theory. Now the New Hope Research Facility had a director, and this was Dr. Niall Sampson, and he began his experiments by injecting the children with daily doses of concentrated Imulsion to study its effects, and of course one of these children was Ukhon. So the research showed that while it caused immediate cell stress and degradation, other cells underwent point mutations that could be seen as beneficial in genetic engineering. Later, one of the doctors that was there, who was known as Dr. Torres, discovered that one of the children, who was known as Mira, exhibited complete immunity to Imulsion and Rustlung. Also, Mira benefited from Imulsion exposure as it decelerated her aging by 50% and supercharged her immune system. Due to this discovery, Dr. Sampson hoped to transfer or replicate her immunity in the other children. The Dr. Sampson had a theory that the indigenous creatures of the Hollow were also genetically immune to the effects of Imulsion due to their proximity, as they actually lived nearby to the Imulsion itself, and began working with transgenics by splicing the children with the DNA of the Hollow creatures. So of course, this is where it goes downhill, it gets graphic, it goes wrong, and of course this was not supposed to happen, right? Because they were supposed to find a cure for Rustlung. So the children were mutated into horrific creatures that became mindless, feral and highly aggressive, as well as genetically unstable, distempered and sterile, and he called these mutated children the Sires. So they were no longer human children, they were these horrific creatures that were known as the Sires, and they began to exhibit some resistance similar to Mira's immunity, but ultimately failed as they each resulted in death, and this declared Mira as a medical anomaly, so she couldn't really be replicated. But when Ukhon was transformed into a Sire, he retained his mental capacity. So his knowledge from being a human, he retained his language, etc. But he was just as sadistic as the other Sires. You could say he was just a Sire anomaly really. But despite still being afflicted with Rustlung, Ukhon gained similar genetic abilities as Mira. Ukhon, when exposed to Imulsion, gained the ability of accelerated healing when wounded, making Ukhon physically immortal. However, the New Hope research facility developed a failsafe and developed cytostatic gas to block Ukhon's healing abilities if he became out of control. And to be honest, not if, but when, because it was bound to happen. So, with Ukhon's retained mental capacity and accelerated healing abilities, Dr. Samson became convinced not to just research a cure for Rustlung, but he became crazy. He wanted to genetically create enhanced soldiers to end the pendulum wars, as well as evolving the human race in general to become stronger and healthier. As the experiments continued, Ukhon became more sadistic and intelligent, causing terror in the facility. Employees of New Hope Research Facility were the victims of attacks by the Sires, causing many employees to become disillusioned and resign, with some even leaking information to the press of what was going on in the facility. Now, Private Sid Redburn, who was a guard at New Hope, he became disturbed by Ukhon and the work at New Hope as well, and he was able to escape the facility with research files and reveal them to Colonel Tolman about the work that was being done at New Hope. Sid Redburn, he was able to escape the facility and show that these guys, they're not finding a cure for Rustlung, they're creating monsters, mindless monsters, and this needs to be stopped. So Colonel Tolman alerted Chairman Monroe and led the coalition to investigate, discovering the rumors about child imprisonment, torture and unethical experimentation at New Hope was actually true. So the facility was then shut down and all involved were indicted. So following the shutdown of New Hope Research Facility, a fringe political party within the Monroe administration contacted Dr. Niles Sampson. They believed that Dr. Niles' work to end both Rustlung and the Pendulum Wars and offered to relocate him and his work to a secret facility in Mount Kadar. So Niles, he agreed, but he was unable to request vehicle transportation in order to not let Chairman Monroe know of their actions. So Ukhon, along with the other sires and Mirror, walked to Mount Kadar on foot with the remaining loyal scientists of New Hope during the night in the snow. So at the Mount Kadar laboratory, Ukhon continued to grow in intelligence, and Niles continued his work by combining the embryonic stem cells of Mirror with the DNA of the sires, creating the first Locust hybrid, which was known as the Matriarch. So as a female, the Matriarch was able to reproduce and gave birth to the Locust Horde. So just like Ukhon, the drones were intelligent. Additionally, they were able to be controlled through the hive mind, as it was discovered that all locusts shared a psychomagnetic link to each other and Mirror. This allowed them to communicate telepathically and allowed Mirror to be able to control them remotely. And following the creation of the Locust Horde, Dr. Torres, who I mentioned previously, impregnated Mirror and she gave birth to a human daughter who was known as Raina. And this is really important in what actually happens next and how that ties into Ukhon's story as well. Now, it was discovered that Raina actually inherited many of Mirror's abilities, including her connection to the hive mind. However, Dr. Torres feared his own daughter would be experimented on and fled the facility with her. So they got out of there, and Niles and his cronies, they were unable to recapture her, and Niles actually had to lie to Mirror and said that Raina had died during the escape attempt. So Mirror, of course, she couldn't believe her eyes, you know. That was her daughter at the end of the day. So Mirror grew a hatred for the humans and empathy for the Locust, her children. Of course, even though Raina was her child, the Locusts were her children as well, as the Locust longed for independence and the Locust did not want to be tortured any longer. So Mirror, along with the Locust drone Srark, then led the Locust Horde to rise up and slaughter all of the scientists in the facility. So Mirror, Srark, and of course Ukhon and the remaining Locust managed to escape the facility and gain their independence. So of course it was Mirror, Srark, Ukhon, who was the sire that retained his mental capacity, and the first generation of Locust, who escaped the facility and went into the Hollow. So, at a certain point, Ukhon came to learn many aspects of science, such as genetics, engineering, and biology. Ukhon actually inherited the scientific knowledge of Dr. Niles Sampson from Queen Mirror, and he became one of the most intelligent members of the Locust Horde, and became a gifted scientist. Like I said before, he retained his mental capacity, he learned a lot from Queen Mirror regarding Dr. Niles Sampson's scientific knowledge, and he came to learn many other aspects of science as well. So to progress the Locust Horde, Ukhon genetically engineered many of the indigenous creatures of the Hollow, as he believed it was the future of the Locust Horde. Among his creations were the Brumak, which he bred from smaller native apes of the Hollow, and created the armor for the Hollow creatures that the Locust Horde used as well. Ukhon also designed the helmet technology that allowed the Locust to control these Hollow creatures, because without these helmets, the Hollow creatures would become rogue and just as dangerous to the Locust as they would be to their enemies. Ukhon also ordered the capture of humans from the surface to use them for genetic experiments, and Ukhon would then test their strength and abilities by placing them in a fighting pit. So like I said, this guy was sadistic, and due to his ingenuity and genius, Queen Myrrah actually invited him to the Locust Council for scientific affairs. So he was the go-to Locust for scientific affairs, and the Queen would consult Ukhon in those matters. And just a bit about the Locust Council itself. So the Locust Council was the inner circle of the Locust Horde. The council was organised during the Lambent War and was based in the Royal Palace of Nexus. The council was held by the highest members of the Locust Horde and deliberated to Queen Myrrah on the Horde's current state of political, military, scientific and religious affairs. So of course Ukhon was there for scientific affairs. So by 7 BE the Lambent War began, so 7 years before Emergence Day took place. Ukhon acted as chief scientist for the Locust Horde, and his studies involved machinery, weaponry and genetic engineering. Ukhon used recycled materials from the surface and supplied the Locust with modified weapons against the Lambent. KingAbzYT, who was the High Priest of the Locust Horde and who Queen Myrrah consulted on all religious matters to do with the Locust Horde, saw this as blasphemy, but Ukhon, who appeared to be agnostic or atheist, saw the modified creatures as the future for the Horde. KingAbzYT scorned Ukhon for having corrupted the Corpser, that was of course a Hollow creature, with machinery. Ukhon stated that corrupted machinery was the future of the Locust, and that KingAbzYT was stuck in a long dead era, and that once he is gone, the Locust would finally be freed from his antiquated beliefs. And at some point during the 7th cycle of the Lambent War, Volkan discovered a deformed Corpser, which had a missing leg, and decided to nurture it, calling it the Shibboleth. Volkan then requested for Ukhon to help mend and modify the Shibboleth. So Ukhon not only devised a metal leg for the Shibboleth, but he also modified it with armor plating, troikas, emulsion bombs, and designed it with the ability to expel nemesis and diggers, and to breathe fire. So Ukhon, he was an absolute genius. And of course he had his own laboratory as well, which we'll break down right now. So Ukhon had his own private research laboratory, and it was located within Nexus in the inner hollow of Mount Kadar. It was here where many of the Hollow creatures were genetically altered and weaponized for the Locust army. Ukhon's laboratory was constructed along with the construction of Nexus in order to aid the Locust Horde in any scientific endeavors, as Ukhon was a genius and learned from the greatest geneticist and scientists known to Sarah during the New Hope research facility and the Mount Kadar laboratory. And then we fast forward to arguably the most well-known moment of the Gears of War franchise, Emergence Day. So, while not present on the surface when the Locust Horde emerged, Ukhon's creations were, and aided in the killing of billions of humans on Emergence Day. War RAAM also agreed to his deal with Ukhon and established a quota of live humans to be captured and experimented on. In the following months, Ukhon began to perform recon missions on surface, and due to this, the Coalition High Command was able to document Ukhon and discover that he was the Locust's geneticist responsible for creating the creatures that aid the Locust army. So Ukhon did abandon his Nexus laboratory to other laboratories on the surface. It is unknown what had become of Ukhon's laboratory since his departure and eventual death in 1 AE, or if he was ever replaced as scientist for the Locust Horde. Regardless, the laboratory was destroyed 14 years after Emergence Day, when the Coalition of Ordered Governments sunk Jacinto City in order to flood the Hollow and drown the Locust and Lambent during Operation Hollow Storm. Nexus was completely destroyed by seawater, as was Ukhon's lab. But unfortunately for Ukhon, he died at the hands of Gabe Diaz and his squad when they figured through Sid Redburn, who I mentioned earlier on in the video, who had a history with Ukhon, that the only way to kill Ukhon was to jam up his healing process with the cytostatic gas grenades. Ukhon attempted to heal himself with the immunity booster, but he was still suffering the effects of the earlier cytostatic gas grenade, and Michaela warned that she had more if they needed it. Ukhon proclaimed that they would never stop all of his creations, and that the Locust would survive and win as humanity was weak and inferior. But Ukhon was cut off mid-sentence by Reyna shooting him in the head with a snub pistol. And of course, with his regenerative powers weakened by the grenade, Ukhon was unable to heal himself and was killed instantly by the shot. Ukhon was a dedicated and skilled engineer and geneticist who believed his inventions and creations were the future of the Locust. Ukhon longed to see his creations rise and achieve a desired outcome, but as a scientist, he was always aware that there was room for improvements. As I said previously, Ukhon was responsible for the Locust Horde's use of many hollow creatures, and he had also created his masterpiece, which was known as the Hydra, and he did this through mutating Reavers, who were also another one of the hollow creatures. And he also experimented on many Locust troops such as Locust drones and Locust Cantus, which resulted in the Locust Disciple and the Locust Zealot. Ukhon harnessed the power of Imulsion to create these enhanced troops, but it is unknown as to why Ukhon would harness the power of Imulsion, knowing that Imulsion was the sole reason as to why the Lamben existed, why he had Rustlung in the first place, and what of course forced the Locust to invade the surface. Also, Ukhon was always eager to acquire any new technology from the surface, believing it would advance his work and that of the Locust. A prime reason why he supported RAAM and Skorge in their plan to invade the surface of Sera and attack humanity. RAAM and Skorge noted that Ukhon was much more of a visionary compared to his fellow council members, and like other Locust leaders, Ukhon considered humans too soft and frail to inherit the world, while his creations and the Locust were the only ones fit to rule Sera. Furthermore, he took sadistic delight in torturing, experimenting or murdering humans who were at his mercy. Due to Ukhon's more scientific viewpoint, he possessed little respect for anything religious, making him agnostic or atheist. He often clashed with Kadar, who was the high priest of the Trinity of Worms, as he believed that ingenuity and automation was the future of the Locust, not worshipping the Riftworm gods. Kadar saw the creatures of the Hollow as sacred beings, whereas Ukhon saw them as tools to improve and use in the field. Thus, Ukhon had no qualms in creating new creatures of the Hollow or weaponizing them, of course much to Kadar's fury. And as one of the oldest members of the Locust species, Ukhon had full knowledge of what he and his kind really were, but the memories of New Hope remained fresh in his thoughts, whereas I'd assume many of the next generations of Locust wouldn't have had the full knowledge of the Locust race and their history. Also, Ukhon recognized Major Sid Redburn and taunted him on the atrocities he witnessed at New Hope and how the Cog ironically created that which is destroying humanity, because of course the Locust were created by the Cog, unfortunately, due to, like I said at the start of the video, Niall Sampson being relocated to Mount Kadar due to a fringe political party in the Monroe administration. And of course Ukhon did die in 1 AE, so 1 year after Emergence Day, but his creatures, they lasted the whole Locust War. His experimentations, his weapons, etc., they lasted throughout the whole Locust War, and there is much more to be expanded on when it comes to that. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's Gears of War Ukhon explained, his full story and history explained. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and comment down below what you thought of the video. What do you think of Ukhon and everything explained in the video, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It's very much appreciated as always. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.